I firmly believe everything happened for a reason. But here I am, dealing with it, moving forward, feeling happy and content with my life and being proud that I am doing it for myself and for my kids. I feel like as human, I don't care who you are, what you do, give yourself more grace. We are not who we think we are. We are who we think they think we are.
Right.
We literally think for their opinions, which most of the time it's not even existing.
Whatever people think about you, it's none of your business.
Yeah.
Right? It's about what you think about yourself, and whatever progress that you're making, you should always look back to your past self and not to anyone else.
Authenticity requires vulnerability.
Absolutely.
You cannot be authentic without being vulnerable.
Say if you're broke. Okay?
Everything. Yeah.
You can decide to make money or not make money. It's up to you.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out. Your survival mechanism in your brain will figure that out for you. If you're broke, you're going to find a way to make money.
And your physical and mental health.
Exactly.
Every aspect of life.
Yes.
Let's just, keep it that way, right? You either continue to fight for it, for your life that you want.
Yeah.
Or you fold and just accept.
What are your deepest insecurities and fears?
I would say my deepest insecurity and fear is probably public speaking. And I am here to overcome that.
You know what's funny about that is that I kind of knew that.
Yeah.
Because based on not that you didn't have anything important to do.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. You have kids and a wife and a job and everything.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you can tell by people's behaviors. I'm like, oh, he's stalling a little bit.
Yeah.
But remember what we talked about how this is how you get good at it by just doing it.
Yeah.
And go on. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah. The fact that you brought that up, I just realized like, wow. And we just stepped into April of 2025.
Yep.
Do you remember when you first asked me to come into the show and sit down with you?
Yeah.
A year ago.
Yeah.
April of last year.
You're right.
I'm like, it's been a year. I've been dodging for a year now.
I know.
Yeah. But again, I appreciate your patience and understand that life, life's always in the way. And I'm happy to be here today with you.
I'm glad you're here. But yeah, let's go into it. What are your biggest insecurities about yourself? And this will relate to obviously what we do, which is BJJ and martial arts in general.
Yeah.
So go ahead, man. Let it out.
Yeah. So now that I'm a dad of two, right? You've met Kyan and the baby too, and they just recently turned 9 and 3.
Adorable. Yep.
So the past 3-5 years of my life has been really transformative personally. And it's been a lot of breaking down egos and being honest with myself, as much as I am a dad and an adult and whatnot. But literally, I took time to starting to step backwards and figure out what I need to overcome. What have I been hiding? What have I been hiding, to myself? Because eventually it's going to affect my life negatively and my kids will see that. So they are my biggest reason to continue to work on my weaknesses and be completely honest with myself, you know?
What made you when you had kids, first of all, yeah, sure. What were those insecurities that you have about, I'm sure you're fighting with your kind of internal self.
Yeah.
We all fight demons.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We all have them. What particularly is the biggest one that you're dealing with?
I would say expressing myself. And I think it's really important. I hold myself back a lot. I'm a big introvert. I love to talk to you one-on-one kind of thing, but I find myself shutting down a lot, and by doing that, I feel like sometimes I miss on opportunities. Sometimes I am not, expressing myself enough or showcasing or leading by example, by showing my kids that, I can do this. I can overcome certain things by simply being honest with myself.
That's interesting that you say that because, I guess what you're really saying is that like you have a lot to offer, but since it's shelved up inside, right, you don't express yourself enough. It's not showcased to
Yeah.
your kids. Like you're not physically
Yeah.
being an example to them,
Right.
right? Even though, they love you and
Yeah.
all that. Okay.
Yeah. So,
point, yeah.
just to hopefully this make a little more sense to you, right? I don't put this out there publicly a lot, but I was born and raised in Vietnam till I was 12. And my parents very, Asian culture. We don't talk. We don't have conversation, and I think at this point of my life with two kids, I am somewhat craving that attention and love and care for my inner child. I'm like going back to give my inner child what I wish I had at the time, right? And again, don't get me wrong, my parents are great parents. They work hard. They did everything within their power to provide and to take care of us. But I'm trying to break the cycles. I'm trying to see the bigger picture here. And again, I lost my mom 10 years ago due to a health problem. I have an older brother as well. He also passed a while back, also due to a health problem. So, going through loss of family members and just life experiences, man. Now I'm like, okay, 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, my kids will be in my position. How will they be talking about me and what kind of impact that I left on them? So looking back, I didn't get much. Like, I feel like life just happened, and I just had to start to be honest with myself and start learning for myself. And I know I can get my kids way ahead, with the proper guidance or just simply be vulnerable with my mistakes, with what I could have learned.
What are you trying to teach your kids or instill the principles in your kids that you didn't have as a kid?
Discipline, and again, being open. I was just the most quiet kid in the classroom, on the street, on the playground, and I was just suppressing everything inside. And that fear continued to grow up all the way until my young adulthood.
Why do you think that is, man? Why do you think you were such an introverted, kind of kept in, shy kid?
I think part of it is influence by my father. He doesn't talk at all.
Okay.
We don't
So
have-
you kind of followed his model.
Yes,
Yep.
we don't. I didn't have an example. I didn't have like a sport or a coach like Kyan, my son now has with jiu-jitsu. So that is part of it, and also bullying, the environment, different aspects, just kind of starting to pile up, and I feel like it would just continue to push me down, and to the point where I'm like, you know what? Now as an adult, I still need to address that. Funny story: college class, public speaking, college class. All right, we had to do a presentation. Man, I couldn't sleep for like 2-3 days before that, right? And the day of, bro, I went up. I did the best I could as far as like had my preparation and my presentation and everything ready. Went up. I froze. I had one of the biggest anxiety attack I've never experienced. I froze. I went numb. All I can hear and feel was my heart pounding, but to jump out of my chest. I literally just, it felt like 30 seconds. I'm sure it was like 2 seconds. Right? I literally excused the
It was kind of like you're in a sparring match.
Yes, I excused myself
It took
from
so
the
long.
class.
It's so
I'm like,
long. It's so long.
I'm like, professor, like I need to go to the restroom.
Mm.
Ran out, felt like I was about to vomit, Anyway, looking back, right? That wasn't as bad as it should have been, but that's how I handled it at the time. So it's been a journey up to this point. Even sitting here talking to you, that fear's still creeping in and out, in and out. You know what I mean?
The interesting about that is that I was in college, and actually communication or public speaking is one of the biggest phobias. So although obviously it affects more people than others, right?
Yeah.
It affects depending on how bad it is for you and how much anxiety you get. But then even in Communications 102, that's literally what that class is meant to do.
Yeah.
Is scare the living crap out of you, and then
Yeah.
kind of go in there, and then just some people. Okay, like me, when
Yeah.
I had to go up there, I was just as terrified as you are. I think for the most part, like I said, everyone is. But then I just look at the paper and read just the notes, and hoping that I'd get a C.
Let's just get this over with.
Let's just get this over with. And I wasn't. And the whole point is to look up, right,
Yeah.
and to like talk to everyone and present your presentation.
But you were blocking them out.
I was blocking them out. I was like, dude, I'm just trying to get through this. Give me a C just to pass the class
Yeah.
for reading through this. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's a big, and honestly, I like what you said about you're still dealing with it now, because we all are, right?
Yeah.
So for instance, I can be good at speaking on this recorder, right?
Yeah.
And I continually to try to get better at it, because I do still have some like flaws and stuff like that. But for instance, if you were to speak in a public crowd with a lot of people, that's a different domain within itself, right?
That's a whole different ball game.
Yeah, and what's funny is like we expect so much from ourselves that we beat ourselves up too much. I think
We do.
Yeah, we're our harshest critic.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to say all the time. I probably said it too many times on this podcast, but we're our harshest critic. But in a way, if you reframe that, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it sets the
It is.
standard for you.
It is.
And if you can reframe it, if you're up to the challenge, it doesn't have to be
Exactly.
anxiety. You could be excited for it.
Yep.
So you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think going back a little bit to my background and what, like your question asked, like where it all started, right? Where I was born and raised, obviously moved to the States by the age of 12. Just then starting to learn English.
Right.
You could imagine that, right?
It's a hard thing to do, man.
So, it was, bullying and all that stuff. It was, middle school, high school stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then that continued to, again, put me in that box. I was just in denial, man. I didn't know how to deal with it. I was just like, let's just get through this. Let's just get through this. Hopefully, life will bring me better people. Again, I wish I have the community that I am in now, for me at the time.
Yeah.
But again, I firmly believe everything happened for a reason. But here I am dealing with it, moving forward, feeling happy and content with my life, and being proud that I am doing it for myself and for my kids.
Absolutely, man. I think a lot of what you're saying, it's great, because that's why I wanted to have you on, because a lot of children, kids, even in their 20s and 30s, honestly, nowadays, have that problem.
Yeah.
It's a pretty common problem from all the psychiatry videos that I've seen. It's because technology is on the rise, and then we're on our phones all the time, and then kids don't get out that much. And it's a problem that it's now an epidemic that happens. So it's almost like, don't feel too bad, because you're not the only one, but I understand that it's subjective to you, right? It's your problem. And I mean, regardless of how people feel about themselves, it's still your problem, right? It's like you have to kind of work around it and deal with it every day. And I know it could be hard. It's subjective to you.
Yeah. And going back to, like you say, we are our most harsh critic, right?
Yeah.
And, we just got to give ourselves grace sometimes. Life is way too short.
I like it. Yep.
Life is way too short. We'll get to that too, especially
That's the mantra of the year, right there.
with the community, the fight community that we're in, right? No pain, no gain.
Sure.
You always gotta tough it out.
Yeah.
We'll get to that, but I feel like as human, I don't care who you are, what you do, give yourself more grace. Because
When
life,
you say give yourself more grace, can you define that a little bit?
love and compassion.
There you go. Okay.
Love and compassion.
That's what I was looking for.
Because life and people already give you enough shit. You know what I mean? Be
Yeah.
nice to yourself a little bit.
Absolutely. You know what? I 100% agree with that. And, you know, I've recently had a health crisis, right? And the thing is that I was watching this podcast. Okay. The point is, I was watching with this podcast with a guy similar, you know, to like this health issue.
Okay.
And he was saying that he got through it, fortunately. And he was saying that the interviewer asked him, you know, what did you learn out of all this? And then he said that, well, I wouldn't take it back, first of all, because maybe you'll learn to love yourself during this process, right? And I think what we were talking about, you know, beating yourself up, it's also a language thing, right? How you
Yeah.
think about yourself, how you talk.
Yes.
Language is so important
Yes.
that people, you know, they'll make self-deprecating jokes about themselves.
Yes.
And that's okay. Like it's great that you can make fun of yourself, but don't overdo it just because it fills
course.
into your subconscious.
Yes.
And then whatever you speak, it comes into existence. And that's not just like some woo-ha cosmic, like, you know, bullshit. It's actually proven.
It is.
When you talk like that, you act like that. When you think like that, what do you think is going to happen? Dr. Joe Dispenza,
Yes.
this guy that I read, right? Your brain doesn't actually know the difference between your imaginative self and your real life self, right? That's why I say whatever you think, you believe, right? So that's why I'm a big proponent in thinking about my future self. That's the way I act,
Yeah.
right? Like say with this podcast, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm the biggest podcaster in the world. And that's not to be cocky. That's to I guess, immerse yourself in what you're going to become in the future. And that's to say that if you think like that, it's not about the external things that you get once you get quote unquote famous or get money.
Right.
It's about the person you become.
It's about, yep.
Right. In
And,
that
and to
process.
touch up on that, like you say, it's not about being the best podcaster in the world, but your belief and the way that you think allow you to do it at your full potential. It's not a cocky thing. It's that self-belief allow you to do it at your full potential. And going back to my fear, right?
Yeah.
I didn't do a lot of things at my full potential because I was being fearful of fully expressing myself.
Right. Yeah.
I was, self-doubt.
Mm-hmm.
The fear that I imposed on myself that didn't even exist, didn't even come from other people, right? I think I shared with you this quote before about, the fear of judgment and opinions, right? We are not who we think we are. We are who we think they think we are.
Right. Right.
We literally think for their opinions, which most of the time it's not even existing. We're imposing that fear on ourselves by our own thought.
It's definitely a self-limiting belief,
Yes.
right? We're socialized human beings. So we look to each other. We could look back. I'm a big evolutionary psychology guy, and we can look back to our ancestors. We need each other, right? We're a tribe. That's why we seek each other's approval, right? Because it gets us to reproduce, right? With women and have babies. It gets us to survive as a community, right? I mean, look what's going on around the world. I'll give you an example. Like, like the iPhone. We need the whole world to make it go round, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like you have buyers from China, you have, all that. You have to get some of the things manufactured in China. What do you think that is? We're all working together, right? So that's why we're so socialized. But what I've learned is that, yes, we do need that. We do need a community. That's very, very important. I don't want to dumb that down because that's a big aspect in my life, meaning your support group, right?
Yeah.
Like the gym, like when we go to the gym and do jujitsu, to me, that's a support group because I can joke around with people. It's not just training to me. It's a community.
Yeah.
It's a community of joking around and playing, saying dirty jokes and having people get it. And, you're touching people, and then it's just, to me, it's a community. But what I've learned is that if you use it in the wrong way, yes, you're 100% right. It could be used against you.
Yeah.
Because initially, where I'm going with this is that whatever people think about you it's none of your business.
Yeah.
Right? It's about what you think about yourself, and whatever progress that you're making, you should always look back to your past self and not to anyone else.
Yep.
To how much you've
Yes.
progressed.
Yeah. Your personal journey, which I would love to talk about once we get to
Absolutely,
jiu-jitsu and BJJ. But just to end up on that overcoming personal fear and being more expressive and being more vulnerable, right? And again, I think I've shared with you one of my favorite quote is authenticity requires vulnerability.
Absolutely.
You cannot be authentic without being vulnerable, because you always be hiding something. You just gotta let go.
Yep.
Be authentic. Be vulnerable with yourself. And
Yes. Again, 100% with you. If there's one lever, right? If there's one leverage that I have in my personality, a lot of people will tell me, and this isn't like a glow kind of thing. They'll be like, "Oh, you're so driven," and stuff like that, right? It's like I'm just as driven as anyone else. I just decided to put it into action. That's what happens when you put it into action. But for me, the biggest lever that I have is vulnerability, because I know that a lot of men in particular aren't vulnerable because they're afraid to be a pussy. You know what I mean? Or think themselves to be like a pussy, because that's what society has demanded of men, especially when they're getting hit up with being judged for not being man enough, right? And toxic masculinity and what's going on with society. And I think, and it's not necessarily men's fault, right? Because I'm a big advocate, because I'm a big advocate of, the whole thing. Because the thing is that, like, especially in this age, especially with young men, they don't have an idol to go to, right? And then everything just comes in full circle with what's going on with technology, with, not going on enough dates. I mean, that's a big deal, like I said, you have to reproduce, man. Like that's one of the biggest things in life, is to have kids and, raise them and think about someone else other than yourself, right? Because that is life. That's what we do. We serve other people. So I think that
serve other people, which I love to talk about that.
One of my favorite quotes, here's one, is that I will use my skills to, or I will exploit my skills in service of other people.
Okay.
I
like that.
I like it. That's why I do everything. And that's what I think in first principle. When I think of like doing this podcast, first of all, I don't think about like, oh yeah, I'm going to do the show. No, I think about, what do you have to offer to the world? What can you offer to whoever's watching YouTube or listening on Spotify? That's my first thought. But anyway, man. Man, obviously we both go to the same gym and we train in martial arts, man. So talking about your insecurities and all that, we do BJJ together. And how has that helped you personally with your insecurities and, your inner demons inside?
The struggle, right? I'll just keep it simple. The struggle that any beginners go through, right? And for me to go through that, and I start training after my son Kyan. He was like 2-3 months in, and I was just sitting on the bench with a baby every day, and was really out of shape at the time. The baby was like 5 months at the time. So
you put your son Kyan in training before you started training.
Yeah,
that one I didn't know.
Yeah, I started after him.
Okay.
So briefly with his story with his medical issue. Long story short, he was paralyzed for about 2 weeks.
Can you explain what that diagnosis was? What particularly it's called?
So what they put down is that he had a brain viral infection.
Wow.
And it happened to be in the cerebellum of his brain, which responsible for his motor skills and speech. So his speech and motor skills shuts down for about 2 weeks. And it was one of the scariest times of my life, right? You could imagine. He was born healthy, real active kid. He was almost 6.5 at the time when it happened. And he just went down. Started slurring. Didn't make no sense, couldn't walk. I lost myself.
Just all of a sudden?
In the span of about 4 days. So he had like a flu symptoms with fever for about 3 days. He was just down resting, loss of appetite. He didn't eat much. And by the 4th day, give him a bath, help him step out of the bathtub, and He just went down. He just collapsed.
Wow.
And at the time,
Oof,
you know, I
couldn't even imagine, dude.
I was just thinking maybe it was just lack of energy from not eating enough the previous days, or just lack of energy in general. But it was very unusual. Like, just completely went down. Like, are you okay? Like, I stood him up. Like, are you okay? He starts talking. He starts slurring. Like, his tongue was just hanging out.
Wow.
I'm like, are you okay? He couldn't answer us. Got him dressed. So he wear glasses when he watch TVs or read or go to school, right? Got him dressed. Went on watching TV shows, trying to feed him. And he stood up and trying to grab his glasses by the TV. Right when he stood up, lost balance, and he just completely fell back, smashed his head onto the wall. And that's when we were like, we're taking him in.
That's so
This was 10 p.m. at night. Took him into the ER. Again, long story short, X-ray, MRI, spinal taps, blood work, all the testing, for anyone who is dealing with serious health issue. A day and a half of testing. And then on top of that, waiting for the test results to come back. So that first 2 days was just scary, right?
The uncertainty.
The uncertainty, the unknown.
Yep.
With your 6-year-old laying there, can't talk to you, can't move, right? I went numb. I remember I was numb those days. We were all just kind of went numb, and we were just there hoping for the best. And, fortunately, everything came back negative. And they decided to put him on this treatment called IVIG. I'm not familiar with it. Very intense, antibodies treatment where they just flush him out, almost like reset his antibody.
Interesting.
But from what I heard, it's real tough on them. It's like, as far as like making you feel fatigue and whatnot. So he was on the treatment for about 3 days, just running through IVs. No food. He was just licking ice. He went no solid food for 6 days. 6 days.
That's crazy.
Right?
Yep.
Scary stuff. Right? I mean, I live in that hospital room with him for those days, sleeping on that chair. We were just hoping for the best. The unknown was continue to get scarier and scarier as you see your child not able to talk, to move. He was laying there for about 6 days.
Listen, man, I'm not a father, but I could only imagine that that's the scariest thing to ever happen to anyone.
Oh, man.
Like their child.
I lost myself. But anyway, thank God. He recovered, right? About a weekend, the physical therapist starting to come in and have him move his feet and speech therapy. And he was still slurring.
Yeah.
And I was just hoping for him to progress and like try not to, rush the process and have faith and whatnot. And they had him get up and walk with a walker, after the treatment, and starting to introduce solid food again, after 6-7 days. And he recovered. 2 months later, we put him in BJJ, kids class. He was 36 pounds when he got discharged. A 45, 46 pounds kids, 6.5-year-old, just got discharged at 36 pounds, right? So, of course I was nervous, man. I didn't train. I'm no like black belt dad, and seeing your kid out there at his weakest. And the sport of jiu-jitsu.
Of course. Intense, man.
Your child at his weakest out there. But, I just have to have faith. Like this is the moment that is going to make or break him, right? So after he got discharged, he spent about 6 weeks going everywhere with a walker because he has to rebuild his walking strength, right? So at the time, my dad, he was really against me signing him up for the gym.
Why did you sign him up for BJJ?
Well,
what was your thought process?
We've always been fight fans.
Okay.
We've always been fight fans.
Yep.
And it happens during the summer. It was mid-June of 2022. So, a little over 2.5 years ago. So we already made plan for him to get into some type of sport that summer. We had soccer in mind. We have different things, So I already had striking and jiu-jitsu in mind.
Yeah.
Nothing was sure just yet because that happened.
Right.
But once that happened, is something just changed for me, right? My dad was a little against it because it's scary, right? It's scary. It's considering what he just went through 2 months ago prior to that. But I firmly believe that, again, it's that point of make him or break him. Going back to how I was raised with my dad. My dad even had fear for me to take him to the park and play at that time. I'm like, you can't do this. If the doctors say he's good to go, this is the moment and the opportunity for us to help him build himself, re-identify himself, or paralyze himself just because he went through that physically and mentally.
Yeah.
Right? Long story short, you've met the kid, right?
Of course,
at a couple of tournaments, you stop by.
He's a killer, man. He's a killer.
Thank you. And man, I'm just so grateful for the coaches and he progressed so fast and he's a miracle. He's a miracle.
You're
out
right.
there.
Yeah, that's definitely the word. It's a miracle.
He is a miracle.
The story of perseverance and and I've heard things go the other way, right?
Yeah.
But I think that personally from me to you, I think as a father, you did the right thing because not that I'm trying to make it about myself, now, but I just want to anecdotally say you have two choices, right? When you go through a health crisis, you can fold or you can say to yourself, let's give this a go.
You keep fighting.
Or you keep fighting.
Or you
right?
keep fighting.
There's only two ways. That's just life in general.
Yeah.
There's
that's
no
life in
even
general.
if it's not a health crisis, say if you're broke. Okay?
Everything. Yeah.
You can decide to make money or not make money. It's up to you.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out. Your survival mechanism in your brain will figure that out for you. If you're broke, you're going to find a way to make money.
And your physical and mental health.
Exactly.
Every aspect of life.
Yes.
Let's just, keep it that way, right? Every aspect of life. You either continue to fight for it, for the life that you want.
Yeah.
Or you fold and just accept as whatever comes.
Yeah. This is a little bit of a cliche, but it doesn't matter. But, martial arts saves lives.
Oh, yeah.
And I've experienced that throughout my own life, time and time again, being an alcoholic for about all my life, ever since I was like 14, 16, something like that, 15, so long ago. And that's everyday drinking, right? I've told this story before. I'm not going to go too much into it, but martial arts saved my life. I almost think that martial arts and the alcoholism when I was going through it, was fighting each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then martial arts won at the end because I've been sober for 3 years.
Congrats, man. I'm happy for you.
Thank you, man. And even till this day, martial arts is saving my life. You still see me at the gym, going through whatever it is that I'm going through. It's amazing. I feel better than ever.
I'm glad. I'm glad to hear.
Yeah, but anyway, sorry. Going back to Kian, yeah, man, it's amazing because I never would have thought that. Because you posted that thing on your Instagram where
did you get a chance to see that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I was near in tears, dude.
I haven't looked at it. I haven't seen it in a while, but I'll be honest with you. Once in a while, I come across it, and you look at your page once in a while, right? Especially I run a business with my page,
absolutely, man.
And I click on it, man. And I'll be honest with you, every single time I cry.
Yeah. It teared me up.
Every single time. I can't remember when was the last time I saw it. But you got to see the video, right?
Yeah, well, dude, I see, that's my point, is that I didn't know that he went through it because he looks he's killing everyone at the gym. You know what I mean? There's just, that's the thing. That's why, you start podcasts like these because everyone has a story, especially with that kind of stuff. I don't know if you saw my post with Trauma, Trauma, Chris.
Yes.
I mean,
Muay Thai coach,
I wouldn't have figured, right?
Yeah.
And even with this, with Kian and even your story, right? Yeah. It's just, he seems such like a healthy boy and, you guys have a great family and all that stuff. But what happens what happened in the past or behind the scenes just doesn't get out there. And I think people need to hear that so that they gain a little bit of resilience and they know that anything is possible, man. Yeah. Anything is possible. Yeah. But anyway, talk about more about your BJJ Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu journey. with Kian and yourself, actually.
With Kyan, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's man.
Sorry,
it's
Kyan.
yeah, it's all good. It's man, it's been such a big blessing. I can't fully put it into words, to be honest with you. You know, Syndicate is the first and only gym that we've been to since we began our journey. And man, with Coach Jerry, Shane's, and the community, meeting you, and just watching my son train, man, I decided to join 3 months later at my worst shape of my life, physically and mentally. I after having 2 kids, man, and especially with my second one, who just now turned 3, but he was 4 or 5 months at a time, right? So I joined a gym with 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I was looking for an outlet, a mental outlet. I could have just go for a workout or lifting weights, but at the time it kind of inspired me so much.
Yeah. You don't want to be running on a stupid treadmill the whole time.
Yeah, he inspired me so much, man. And I'm like, you know what? Let's get in there. How bad could it be? It was bad.
Right when you said that, I was like, hold on, pause.
It was real bad, right? It was real bad. And now looking back, it was the greatest blessing for me as an individual, as a father, as a man, having to drop my ego, having to learn something new so difficult, having to do that, going through that struggle. And my 6-7-year-old sitting on the bench watch me because, I sit for his class and then he stayed for our class, the night class.
Oh, right.
Have him watch me through the fence, just struggling, getting mad, getting choked out, getting cranked.
Oh, you mean so you're not picking the easiest guy out there in the video, still picking yourself so that you can murk him and kill him?
No, at the time, I was, the worst, and I still am. I feel like it's a personal journey,
we all are,
but
bro.
yeah, but something hits me real hard, going through the process of eliminating your ego, going through the process of unlearning to learn new things.
Sure.
And I'll be honest with you, somewhat of a embarrassment too.
Absolutely.
Because my child is watching me getting smashed for months. Yeah. I have to accept that because otherwise I would have just stopped training and not letting him see that side of me. You know what I'm saying? So it's so humbling, right? It didn't feel so nice at the time, to be honest with you.
It's actually counterintuitive because that's good that you did that because now that your child sees you, it's like you're walking the talk, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You think that you're getting embarrassed when actually you're doing your kid a favor. You're teaching them that it's okay to lose and then get better from it. That's really what you're showing by action.
And going back to that's my personal fear. I refuse to continue to hide and lie to myself. Because I want him to see that.
Yeah.
I want him to see that. I want him to see that I am struggling and eager to learn just as much because it was hell for him the first 6-7 months. Like, if you ask Coach Jerry, like they literally raised that kid on the mat. He was the smallest and the weakest. Again, going through what he went through, right? Yeah. 36 pounds, 6.5 years old, like that's for like a 4 or 5-year-old size, right? He struggled so hard, but there was a side of him that came out on the mat that I got to see, the determination. The name Kyan the Lion, Coach Jerry gave that to him. We didn't make that up.
I love it.
He didn't choose that.
So that's the origin.
It was given.
It
was given. This kid is he is the most. He can be a little sensitive, right? but he is the most. He is so.
Kyan, man up, dude.
He is a sweetheart.
Yeah.
But man, jiu-jitsu has allowed him to discover this warrior side of him that we never thought he has. He didn't know he has.
Sure.
A year in, right? Even till today, he's still so excited to train. He's so proud. You know, I mean, he just turned 9, so the way we communicate is a little different
Sure,
now.
sure.
You know, but you know that age of like 7 and 8, they're still very gullible, very cute.
Yeah.
I'm like, Kai, what's your superpower? Right? Before jujitsu was Spider-Man, was superheroes. Once he started training, jujitsu is my superpower. He firmly believed that.
Yeah.
It gave him that confidence and that identity,
Yes.
and things just click for him. He competes, you know. First year, smash it. We're going through a different journey now. He, you know, this past year experienced more losses than wins. He's you know, getting into the advanced level. But yeah, man, he spent the first 7-8 months crying on the mat.
Mm-hmm.
Every life role.
Oh, so you mean he was like me when I
Me
when
too.
first
Me
8
too.
months, I was crying.
Yeah,
8
but
months
you know,
on the mat.
people see him now on the mat, right? They don't understand that we pay our dues.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and I want to talk about parents of kids who play sports and jiu-jitsu in specific have,
Oh, that's
you
a
know,
big one.
yeah, we'll get to that
That's a big
later.
one, yeah.
The
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I think that's a very important topic. But before we get there,
Yeah.
I want to touch on that because, you know, the thing about kids, right? When we're talking about all our traumas over here, right, and being vulnerable, part of the reason is that we subconsciously, right, but sometimes we're not conscious of our limiting beliefs. We're subconscious of it. That means it's in our internal.
Yeah.
And we don't recognize it. We're not self-aware of them, right? So we're kind of living ourselves in denial and we don't even know it at times.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to peel back the layers of that onion, right? So my point is that you having to train Kian, and I'm sure that, you know, there's a lot of things that he's not processing because he's still, you know, a kid. But the good thing is that it is going into his subconscious autonomic state, which means that his self-belief.
Yeah.
That's what we're literally talking about right now.
Yeah.
Our traumas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then what you're teaching him, since you put him in jiu-jitsu, is the will to believe in himself and progress every single day.
Yeah.
Now, he's probably not conscious of what's going on, but then it's instilling in his, again, self-belief, right? Like how we used to be shy kids, or we're introverts, or we were scared of public speaking.
Yeah.
We weren't conscious of that. You know what I mean? Just because we're adults now we're starting to peel back the layers of those onions. We're like, oh yeah, that's where it stems from. And that's where the root cause of it is from. But then really it's like habits and in our like unconscious state that why we believe those things without even knowing it. Now we're identifying it, you know, and now we're trying to fix ourselves. But then it's good that Kian,
You're good.
at like a early age, is getting into his autonomic nervous system.
Yeah.
So he doesn't even have to think about it when he knows when he goes through a challenge or he has to go through something that he has to be resilient. He's just going to automatically do it because he knows what fucking hard feels like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And he surprised us and himself. You know, like if you ever get to see him train, and you know, Coach Jerry is big on this, right? Effort. Effort. Right? And the thing with Kyan, he's a bit of perfectionist.
Sure.
He loves art. You know, like if one little line is off, he's
a little bit
over.
of OCD there. Yeah.
So, you know, he's a little bit of a perfectionist, and he brings that onto the mat. And you know how it is with Coach Jerry, right? And especially even in the adults class, effort, right? At all levels, from white to black, it don't matter. So the thing with me, once I start training with him, I know, man, I started dying after the warm-up, the shrimping. I got dizzy from back row and front row. I'm like,
I'm done.
You know, 4 hours of sleep before with the baby and overdo myself with caffeine just to wake up, heart rates and, you know,
like
I'm like, what am I doing here? You know what I'm saying? But, you know, I had this talk with him. I'm like, you know, I tried really hard to be on the bench and be there for you so you can train. Do your best. That's all I'm asking. Do your best, you know, because if you're not doing your best, you wouldn't know what the full potential is. Do your best. And it's going to take a lot of messed up as far as like repping the techniques and stuff like that. Same thing with us adults. Right? And we have this man, I didn't even dream about this. And to me, this is such a blessing. We have this beautiful connection through jiu-jitsu up to this point of a little over 2.5 years in now of training, right? And, you know, I'm able to have a friendship with him. Literally, I just
a
had
bond,
this,
right?
a bond. I just had this talk with Coach Jerry the other day, how I grabbed him after class. I was there night class, and Kyan was waiting for me. And grab him after class and ask a question. Right, Kyan was right there by the fence, watching the whole thing went down, and it was simple. It was literally just passing guard from a body lock, whatever. And on the way home in the car, he calls me Baba. He's like, Baba, I didn't know you still raise your hand and ask a question. You know, I'm like, of course. That's what we're gonna be doing for the rest of our life. You know, and it's so humbling. It hits me so hard. I don't even know how to explain it. I guess it's just in my position as a dad and what he went through and everything. I always get a little emotional talking about his journey and everything. But moments like that was so special for me. Like he recognized that I was humble enough to ask questions, that I'm learning, being a student
Right.
in front of him.
Yeah.
You know, and it sparked something in him. He's like, wow, like you're learning too. You're a student.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, of course.
I think that's such a beautiful thing, man. And you know what's funny is that I'm getting these like, I'm actually getting excited for my future self to have those kids because that's exactly the interaction I want with my kids.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's a learning kind of, you're passing on down literally through your ancestors, through what you've learned now, through what he's going to learn. And then he's going to he's going to reverse engineer that and then make whatever he's learned through you.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a beautiful part of being like a parent. You know, it's something that you're right. I can't even describe. It's almost like it's like a bonding moment that's priceless.
Yes.
To like a son and dad. Like I can't even, there's no feeling probably like it. Right. You know, and, man, that's amazing to hear. And I'm glad that, you know, you were able to get him in that discipline. It's funny how things work out, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like you could have got him into anything, but then I think it's more of like your intuition or whatever was calling to you that you had to, well, and being fan of sports combat, combat sports helped too. But, you know, I mean, part of that, you didn't have to stick him in there. I mean, you could have stick him somewhere else. You could have been like, it's too dangerous, but you know, you decided to stick him in there. And then it was probably the best ROI, return of investment that you've gotten, right? Like,
but
stick him in there.
I got to give the credit to our coaches.
Of course, man. Yeah.
You know, people don't do that enough, right? Like,
Bro,
like parents, like,
agreed.
Look at my child. Or if they train, like if they're look at me.
Yeah.
Dude, Coach Jerry, Coach Shane, like I love them, man. I feel like I don't tell them enough, you know, because we train and we leave. I got shit to do. I get it. But, you know,
I'm sure they understand.
My child, Kyan, he is a true reflection of, you know, how do I put this into word? Like Coach Jerry plays somewhat of not just a coach, but a father role on the mat. And sometimes it's so humbling for me to watch that, right? And step back and allows that to go down. And it's so beautiful to watch because it's something that I have to admit that Kyan is growing right in front of me with those training and interaction with his coach that he wouldn't get from me.
Yeah.
And it's such a blessing for me to have that, to have those individuals in my life impacting my life and my child's life in such positive way. You know, you can't buy that.
I think part of it too is that they're filling a void of what you don't know, right? Like kind of like a second father.
Yeah.
But it's filling a void of what they could teach them from their experience, right?
Yeah.
So it's filling up that gap.
But a lot of parents, they look at any sports, they look at coaches as just a coach.
Just a coach, yeah.
I'm paying you to coach my kids. I'm paying you to teach my kids this sport.
Yeah.
Nah, there's so much more that goes into that. I just feel like teachers and coaches just don't get enough credit. just don't get enough credit. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just how my sons turn out. But I feel like people need to hear that, man. The coaches and the teachers need to hear that.
I agree. I think so too. But I think it's a person to person. It's more of how people grow up, because usually when you talk to someone in a way that deems to be disrespectful, or like you said, not give enough credit, it's more say for example, right, the whole coaching, the whole parents get in the way of thinking they know better than Coach Jerry and like jiu-jitsu, right, which is completely ridiculous. I think it definitely is, actually, and this is just therapy psychology 101, is that it's a projection of themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
From how they are as a person, more than it is like Jerry's problem.
Yeah.
It's a projection of what they wish that they would have been
Yeah.
as kids and as a father even, right?
Yeah.
They're projecting that onto you. So it's no different than when you're at work and then someone says something outlandish to you and it's kind of like, wait, that has nothing to do with me, but it pisses me off. But really it's just the other person projecting their own insecurities on you. I think that goes in the same lines along what's going on with parents and the coaching aspect.
Yeah.
It's more like they have an underlying internal insecurity that they haven't dealt with, that now they think that they're in the power of authority, that they're paying the coach.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Now that it's a superiority complex.
Yeah.
And then, they're just trying to use their quote unquote authority and power because you're paying the coach. And then all of a sudden, you tell the coach what to do. No. It doesn't work that way, buddy. At least not around these parts.
Yeah, that unrealistic expectation.
Unrealistic expectations. That's actually really the right word for
unrealistic expectation, and then, but going back to Kai, man, like he became the youngest yellow belt. I don't know if you know much about the kids belt system.
A little bit, yeah.
But he got his yellow belt last year, and
it's amazing, man.
He didn't even turn 9 yet. And again, I'm not always about the belt, right?
Yeah.
I've learned and constantly try to remind myself every time I train, and same thing, trying to teach him that is forget about the belt. It's a personal journey,
Exactly.
It's a personal journey, and going back to parents have unrealistic expectation on their kids in any sport, but specifically jiu-jitsu. Is that one, they don't know what it feels like to be out there, most parents, right?
Oh gosh, yeah. Jeez.
Two, how do I put this into words? And I have been there over 2.5 years, and I've seen.
You're a parent yourself.
I've seen some shit gone down with kids who left the gym and because of the parents and whatnot, right? The ego and the what's the word? Entitlement. That Coach Jerry liked to say.
It's true.
It's true. The entitlement.
It's entitlement.
That create unrealistic expectation, right? So I've been thinking about that a lot lately because it's still happening. And, Coach Jerry talked to me about that from time to time. And me as a parent,
For our viewers, by the way, Coach Jerry is our head Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach. Shane is our head coach as well, and they're brothers. I just want to make that. They're like, who's Jerry? Like, just for the viewers that don't know that, we go to the same gym. And
syndicate,
like Yeah.
And amazing people and coaches, and on and off the mat. I can't emphasize that enough. But, back to Kai's growth and discipline on and off the mat and how it shaped him into the kids that he is today. Off the mat, honor roll student, always get rewarded student of the month for the most respectful, kind kid. And when he's on the mat, it's a whole different story, But you know how it is, right? He's a natural little leader that he has become through this process. And again, give all the credit where it's due to our coaches. But back to the parents who have unrealistic expectation on their children, right? Came across this quote, and I can't agree, enough, is that teach your children early what you learn late. That's me. It hits me so hard because I didn't get to learn shit when I was little. I didn't. I wish I got, man.
Well, it's a factor, right? I mean, that's why you're teaching your kids now.
Yeah. I'm
Right.
just so eager to teach them everything in my power.
Sure.
And just see them grow and blossom into the person that they can be.
I think just like you told Kian to do the best that he could do, we should take our own advice on that too, and just do the
course.
best that we can do.
Yes.
Like I'm not a parent, don't get me wrong, but as a parent and just anything with life, I think that you should just do the best you can.
That's all you can
the best
do?
you can. That's all you can do, literally, and that's in like the 4 agreements. That
Yes.
4 agreements. But
Yes.
it's true.
Number 4.
Number 4,
Always do your best.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's literally all you can do. If you know internally and you're not lying to yourself and you can be honest with yourself
Yes.
that you did your very best, even say like a jujitsu
Yes.
class, you
Yep.
put it all on the line
Yep.
and you did what you can. Even this quote, right? Like I think you hear it around social media now that if you had 40% that day and you gave it your 40%, that was your 100%
Yes.
that day.
Yeah.
And I truly believe in that. I don't know about the hyper productivity or, like the grind set, and
Yeah.
all that. I get all that. I get the hustle culture and stuff like that. But dude, sometimes we're not at our best. Okay. That's just, we're humans.
Yeah.
All right. We're not perfect. And if you still made it to the gym, right? I always say this. I have to be bedridden to not go to the gym. I lift, I do Muay Thai, I do Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm not gloating about that. It's just, that's what I do. It's like breathing to me.
Yeah.
So if I don't make it somehow or one way, there's a problem, right? It's almost like if I'm late to work, like I'm a big proponent for punctuality.
Yeah.
Like just being on time and, sticking to my word, being honest with myself. Because like say I'm drifting off a little bit here, but then if I can lie to you, right?
Yeah.
But then I'd be lying to myself.
Yeah.
And you know where shitty self-esteem comes from, low self-esteem from? Lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Because you can't trust yourself.
Yeah. Lack of self-honesty.
That's why I'm a big proponent of that, meaning that your body keeps score. You can't lie to yourself, bro. It's gonna affect your confidence. It's gonna affect everything you do in life.
Yeah.
If you want to start going to the gym, and then you're gonna say you're going to the gym on Monday, you don't do it, and then you'll say Tuesday you don't do it, and then next Monday you're gonna self-sabotage yourself by saying I'm a piece of shit because I didn't make it the past few times.
Yeah.
You're lying to yourself. That's why it's very important to either do what you say or don't say it at all.
Yeah.
Right.
So that will change for you though. Once you become a father.
Ooh.
So I don't think I've told you this, but
It's cryptic.
I came from a fitness background, right? For about 10 years, did personal training and very disciplined, right? Fitness industry is all about the discipline,
Yeah.
right?
Let's go.
And just like
Let's go.
being on time, meal prep,
Yeah.
calories, nutrition, all that,
Got
sleep, right?
Got it. Macronutrients.
I was
Let's go.
locked in before I had my kids.
Yep.
Long story short, now 2 kids in, right? 9 and 3.
Yeah.
Going back to my beginning journey of jiu-jitsu at the time, being out of shape, live on caffeine, desperate for sleep, I mean, people probably don't even think about this, but you probably don't know how many diapers I had to change before I make it to class.
I have
you
an
feel
idea.
me?
I kind of have
The
an idea.
struggles.
Yeah.
How many breakfast and lunch that I had to
make.
eat in the car,
Sure.
just so Kine can make it to school on time or
Yeah.
make, he gets to jiu-jitsu on time. And at least I get, fuel before I can train. And, again, it's I embrace, now looking back, I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. At the time, I didn't give myself enough credit. I beat myself up a little bit for just how tired I am or how well I could have done. But realistically, I was tired.
Yeah.
I was really tired. I'll be rolling with guys in their early 20s who get 8-9 hours sleep. It's a different story, right?
Yeah.
Now looking back, I feel like I reflect, sometimes I reflect and I give myself grace and credit. I got my blue belt a little over a year ago. I never even posted. I feel like I didn't give myself enough credit.
Got it.
I'm proud of it, but I'm just so focused on my kids' journey, work, family, and of course my personal journey overcoming fear and being honest. But I'm gonna share it. now
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
proud of it. I'm proud
You
of
should
it.
be, man.
Thank
should
you.
be.
And I appreciate you, right? You've been there since day one. You've seen, I don't know. I mean, I hope you see the struggle I went through.
Absolutely, man.
And, and I
That's why you're here.
I appreciate, you guys and all, you guys are family now, right?
Yeah.
On the mat for me, off the mat too.
Yeah, likewise, brother.
And I appreciate and so much how I get to learn from such world class, we get to learn from world class coaches.
Yep.
One, two, it's such a blessing for me to have training partners like you guys who have decades of experience over me and still be nice enough to roll with me, right? Like I was a white belt who don't know nothing. I was out of shape, but going back to practicing and preaching about effort to my son, I want to, put that on the mat, which is effort.
Nice.
No matter how tired I was.
Yeah.
Still same, to today. And, Cody, Bryce, all my guys,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that so much, man.
Well, yeah, thanks. Likewise, man.
Yeah, not
Likewise.
just give me a challenging learning environment, but also safe.
Yes,
And that's a big
absolutely.
thing for me because
Yeah.
off the mat, I have to be a dad
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I got to work, right?
Right,
And
right.
you know what I do for work.
Yeah,
So-
honestly, that's all of us, right?
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. And before we kind of end, the podcast, which this was been amazing, by the way, right?
Thank you.
Like it
Yeah.
was great. Like look, everyone has their own goals when it comes to training. Everyone lives different lives, right? Everyone has, most people have kids. They work different jobs. Those jobs require you to demand you of different things, compared to other people. Some people can't get hit in the face with a black eye and go in there all the time or get cut up.
Yeah.
Some people can't go in there with an ACL tear. You need to make money.
Yeah.
But everyone has their own goals. And I'm in the same boat, man. You don't have to be a 22-year-old going crazy that's like going into a car crash every single time because you want to win IBJJF Worlds or whatever. If that's your goal, that's great. That's your goal. But that's exactly what I mean is that everyone is individualized to fulfill whatever they need to do, right? Like their goals, whatever it is. If you're a hardcore competitor, if you're a hobbyist, if you're a practitioner, and whatever you are, you're going to play by whatever's sustainable to you, right? That's what I've figured out in my journey. I'm not a competitor, man. I'm not. I just like to do it. Sometimes it'll get intense, like saying Muay Thai or something.
It should be intense.
It should be.
It should be intense. That's when it tests you the most. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, you can't have a distorted vision of like you think you're like doing jits and then all of a sudden you try it in the streets or get something in the streets and then all of a sudden you're getting murked. But you have to be realistic about it. But yeah, of course. But then it's almost like, look, if you're gonna do it for sport, do it for sport, man. If that's your goal, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. If there's principles, right? Like what Jerry teaches us that are universal, meaning that like, hey, don't skip out on rounds. That one I truly believe, even if you're tired, because anyone could do it, right? Anyone could do it. Now, if he was to say like, hey man, punch each other in the face as hard as you can, then there's a problem. But then the principles that he instills, anyone could do it, right? Just don't give in. That's it. Pace yourself, If you can't pace yourself and then you lose, well, your technique probably sucks, like shit like that. It's applicable universally to anyone. It's not something outlandish to where it's like, yeah, motherfucker, you better go.
And that's the thing about jiu-jitsu too that I love is that it really puts you in the position of self-honesty, right?
Yeah.
So a couple of things I want to touch on.
Sure,
right?
of course.
So jiu-jitsu puts you in a place of being vulnerable. You're tired, you're exhausted, you're embarrassed. If you're like me with your child watching you, right? Sure. What you choose and how you choose to overcome that is really up to you. Like, and I choose to return to the mat despite of all that. Because yes, it's somewhat humiliating being so out of shape, getting smashed. But I wouldn't want it any other way now looking back. As a blue belt and my son is progressing, we're sharing this bond and he looked at me as a student of the sport myself, you know, something sparked in him where he become even a bigger of a student. He's incredible. His drive is incredible. Like they did a plank contest the other day in the kids class. Kids class big now. I don't know if you've seen up to 60, 70 kids.
Yeah, I see it. Trust me.
He held a plank. You're not saying he held a plank for 7 minutes and 30 seconds.
That's brutal.
Kids starting to leave the mat, going to the wall.
Yeah.
It's like he was shaking, sweating, dripping. Jay and Zane just like, you're good, kind. Like they were tired
They were like, all right,
of checking the clock. He was like shaking, like I'm not giving in. Like
like all right, buddy.
He was still the last one for another extra like 45 seconds. Like you're good, kind. Like things like that. I got to witness.
Gotcha.
You know, give me so much inspiration.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, man, going back to you know, it don't matter who you are and what you do, right? Like for me, you know, despite of your title and position, it's humbling to think that it's about what you're contributing.
Yes.
And the impact that
100%.
you're able to create.
Exactly. The impact, the word impact, that's what it's about. The word giving, that's what it's about, right? Like that I had a conversation with someone that I was working with in kickboxing this morning, and giving and being kind and impacting people isn't just something you do. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
All right. It's just like going to the gym, right? You do it constantly, you make it a habit, you automate it, and then it just becomes a part of you.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Life really is. And to some people it might sound cheesy, but you know, to me, it's one of my main principles now that I'm still working on, is that you have to be kind to people. You have to give whatever you can give. And I'm not telling you to give them $1 million that you don't have. You know, share your wisdom, do what you can physically for them, give them money if you have it.
We all have so much to offer.
We do.
We all have so much to offer. Right? Like they say, give the world what you want to receive from the world.
Yeah.
It'll always come back to you. Your energy.
Absolutely. It's a universal law.
Your energy, your time, your intention, your effort.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much to give.
Even just the way you compliment someone can make someone's day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, wow, I never realized that before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it just trickles up from there.
Yeah.
You don't know the amount of change that you can impact someone, right? I think they just go about it like, yeah, I'm just a regular human. No, everyone, and this may be cringy to some people. It used to be cringy to me before, but you already have what it takes to do whatever you want in you.
Yeah.
You do. You just have to let it out. You have to imagine it and then put it into fruition, into your physical action. But anyway, man, like, we're definitely like, you know, I'm running out of time here. I actually got to take my dad somewhere. But yeah, so dude, before we go though, man, this has been a good talk. And that's why I wanted you on the podcast. I think, you know, seeing you and your progression, and especially, you know, Kayan, let's go. Being, you know, seeing your progress and you know, just getting to know you. You remember when I got that you know, massage from you, because he is a massage therapist. We talked a little bit about, you know, your story. And look, everyone has a story, and that's why I started this podcast.
I appreciate you.
And then this is I needed to have you here. That's why I was so I guess you could say a little bit aggressive and adamant that I wanted you on the podcast.
I appreciate you, and I'm glad I did it, and I'm glad I'm here today. I feel so much better now.
I know you do.
I feel like it's a personal...
it's like a massage itself, right?
It's a personal win for me. You know, it's a personal win for me. You know, I feel so super comfortable now. I was having a little bit of anxiety coming in.
I told you.
You know, I appreciate you and giving me this opportunity to face my fear.
Exactly.
You know,
let's go.
To face my fear, and it's humbling. You know, it's so humbling, and I feel super comfortable in getting to express myself. You know, and
that's why we do this.
Didn't have an anxiety attack.
Exactly.
After all,
yeah, you didn't like fall on the floor and then hit your head.
Part two coming soon.
Part two coming soon.
No, I appreciate you. You know, but yeah, man, thank you,
brother.
Yeah.